The plane climbed higher into the evening sky. The lights of New York faded behind them. Inside the first-class cabin, the other passengers settled in for the long flight. Some read books. Others watched movies on their personal screens. A few closed their eyes to sleep. Marcus opened his laptop again and tried to focus on his work. He was reviewing a proposal from a startup company in Seattle. They wanted funding for new airplane technology that would make flights more efficient. The numbers looked good. The team was strong. He made notes in the margins of the document. Rebecca appeared with the dinner cart. She stopped at the elderly couple's row first. "We have 3 options tonight," she said warmly. "Grilled salmon with vegetables, chicken pasta, or a vegetarian curry. What would you like?" The couple chose the salmon and chicken. Rebecca served them with a smile. She made sure they had everything they needed: extra bread, more wine, a fresh napkin. She moved to the businessman across from Marcus. "And for you, sir?" "I'll try the salmon," he said. "Excellent choice," Rebecca replied. She placed his meal on his tray table with care. "Can I get you another glass of champagne?" "Yes, please." Rebecca continued down the aisle, serving each passenger with attention and warmth. She laughed at jokes. She offered recommendations. She refilled drinks without being asked. When she finally reached Marcus's row, her smile disappeared. She stood next to his seat and waited. She did not ask what he wanted for dinner. Marcus looked up from his laptop. "What are the dinner options?" he asked. "We have salmon, chicken, or vegetarian," Rebecca said flatly. "I'll have the chicken, please." Rebecca's expression changed. She looked annoyed. "Actually, we're out of chicken." Marcus glanced around the cabin. He had been watching. She had only served 1-person chicken so far, the elderly man in 2A. There should be plenty left. "Okay, then I'll have the salmon," Marcus said. "We might be running low on that too," Rebecca said. "Let me check." She walked back to the galley without another word. 10 minutes passed. Marcus saw Rebecca serving drinks to passengers in the back of first class. She brought the young businesswoman a second glass of wine. She brought the elderly woman behind Marcus a cup of tea. Jennifer, the younger flight attendant, noticed Marcus still had no meal. She approached Rebecca in the galley. Marcus could not hear their conversation, but he could see Jennifer pointing toward his seat. Rebecca shook her head and said something sharp. Jennifer's shoulders slumped. Finally, Rebecca returned to Marcus's seat. She placed a meal tray on his table without a word. It was the vegetarian curry. Marcus had not ordered the vegetarian option. "I asked for salmon," Marcus said calmly. "We ran out," Rebecca said. "The curry is very good." She walked away before he could respond. Marcus looked down at the meal. It probably was good. That was not the point. The point was that Rebecca had lied. He had watched her serve salmon to 3 other passengers after she told him they might not have enough. The businessman across the aisle noticed what happened. He leaned over slightly. "That's not right," he said quietly. "I saw her serve salmon after she told you they were out." "It's okay," Marcus said. He did not want to create a bigger scene. "No, it's really not," the man insisted. He extended his hand across the aisle. "David Chen, I work in airline consulting." Marcus shook his hand. "Marcus Kim." "Listen, Marcus," David said. "I've been watching what's happening. The way she's treating you compared to everyone else. It's discrimination. Plain and simple. You should report it." "Maybe," Marcus said. He appreciated David's concern, but he had learned that fighting every battle was exhausting. Sometimes you had to pick which hills to die on. David sat back in his seat but continued to watch Rebecca with disapproval. Marcus ate his curry in silence. It actually was pretty good. When he finished, he set his tray aside and went back to his work. An hour later, the cabin lights dimmed for the night service. Most passengers reclined their seats and tried to sleep. The airplane hummed steadily through the dark Atlantic sky. Marcus needed to use the bathroom. He unbuckled his seatbelt and stood up. As he walked toward the back of the first-class cabin, he heard voices from the galley. The curtain was partially open. He could see Rebecca and Jennifer inside. "I don't understand why he's even in first class," Rebecca was saying. She kept her voice low, but not low enough. "He probably can't even afford it. Maybe he used a credit card he can't pay off. Or maybe someone gave him the ticket. You know how some companies have those diversity programs?" "Rebecca, you shouldn't assume things like that," Jennifer said quietly. "I'm not assuming. I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. He doesn't fit here. Look at him. Jeans and sneakers in first class. And that tiny backpack? Real first-class passengers have proper luggage. Marcus stopped walking. He stood just outside the galley, out of their line of sight. He could see their reflections in the metal surface of a storage compartment. I think you're being unfair, Jennifer said. Her voice was stronger now. He seems nice. And even if he was dressed in rags, we're supposed to treat every passenger with respect. That's literally our job. Oh, please, Rebecca scoffed. You're new. You don't understand yet. Part of this job is knowing who the important passengers are. Trust me, he's not important. He's probably nobody. Jennifer did not respond. She looked uncomfortable. Rebecca continued. And did you hear him on the phone earlier? Speaking some Asian language, Chinese or Japanese or whatever. If you're going to fly on an American airline, at least speak English so people know what you're saying. He was speaking Korean, Jennifer said, and passengers can speak whatever language they want. This is really inappropriate, Rebecca. Fine, defend him if you want, Rebecca said with a dismissive wave. Just don't come crying to me when you learn that being too soft with passengers doesn't get you anywhere in this company. I've been doing this for 15 years. I know what I'm talking about. Marcus had heard enough. He quietly walked past the galley to the bathroom. His face remained calm, but his mind was racing. He had dealt with prejudice many times in his life. When he was building his first company, investors doubted him because of his age and his race. When he walked into business meetings, people assumed he was the assistant, not the CEO. Even after he became successful, some people still looked at him and saw only his Korean heritage and made assumptions, but this felt different somehow. More personal. Rebecca's words were not just ignorant, they were cruel. And they were spoken with the confidence of someone who had never faced consequences for treating people badly. Marcus washed his hands and looked at himself in the small bathroom mirror. He looked tired. The flight was only half over. He still had several more hours of this treatment ahead of him. He could complain to the captain. He could demand to speak to a supervisor when they landed. He could make Rebecca's life difficult right now if he wanted to, but that was not who Marcus was. He did not believe in using his power to hurt people, even people who deserved it. He believed in changing systems so that what happened to him would not happen to others. Still, Rebecca needed to face the consequences of her actions. Not because Marcus wanted revenge, but because if she could treat him this way, she was treating other passengers this way too. Passengers who might not have the resources or confidence to fight back. Marcus returned to his seat. Eleanor Patterson, the older woman behind him, was still awake. She was reading a book with a small light clipped to the pages. She looked up as Marcus sat down. I heard what she said in the galley, Eleanor whispered. These old ears still work pretty well. Marcus turned slightly to look at her. You heard that? Every word, Eleanor said. Her eyes were sad but knowing. I'm 73 years old. I've been hearing comments like that my whole life. From teachers, from employers, from people who thought I couldn't hear them or wouldn't do anything about it. Did you ever do anything about it? Marcus asked. Sometimes, Eleanor said. When I was younger, I fought every battle. I reported every incident. I wrote letters and made complaints. Some things changed. Most things didn't. Eventually, I got tired. But that doesn't mean I was wrong to fight, and it doesn't mean you should stay quiet now. I'm not going to stay quiet, Marcus said, but I'm going to handle it the right way. At the right time, Eleanor smiled. Good. The world needs people like you. People who don't just get angry but actually do something constructive with that anger. She went back to her book. Marcus pulled out his phone. He opened his email and started typing a message. It was addressed to Amanda Foster, the regional director of the airline's European operations. Marcus had met Amanda at an aviation conference last year. They had talked about technology and customer service. She had given him her card and told him to reach out any time. Marcus wrote a brief email explaining what had happened on the flight. He did not exaggerate. He did not use emotional language. He simply stated the facts, the assumptions, the differential treatment, the conversation he had overheard. He also mentioned Jennifer, the younger flight attendant who had tried to do the right thing despite pressure from her senior colleague. Marcus believed in acknowledging good behavior as much as addressing bad behavior. He saved the email as a draft. He would send it when they landed and he had Wi-Fi again. For now, he needed to get through the rest of this flight. Marcus reclined his seat and closed his eyes. Morning light began to fill the airplane cabin. Passengers stirred in their seats. Some stretched and yawned. Others checked their watches and phones. Outside the windows, the sky was turning from dark blue to soft pink. Marcus had slept for maybe 3 hours. It was not great sleep. The kind where you drift in and out, never quite comfortable. He rubbed his eyes and looked at his laptop screen. He had more work to finish before landing. Rebecca appeared with the breakfast cart. She seemed refreshed, like she had slept well during her rest break. Her uniform was crisp and her hair was perfectly neat. She smiled at the elderly couple as she approached their seats. "Good morning. Did you sleep well?" she asked them cheerfully. "Not too badly," the elderly woman said. "What's for breakfast?" "We have an omelet with toast and fruit, or yogurt with granola and berries," Rebecca explained. "And of course coffee, tea, or juice." The couple ordered their breakfast. Rebecca served them with the same warmth she had shown the night before. She made sure their coffee was exactly how they liked it. She offered them extra jam for their toast. The businessman, David, ordered the omelet and coffee. Rebecca brought his meal promptly and asked if he needed anything else. She refilled his orange juice without him having to ask. Then she moved to Marcus's row. Her smile vanished. She stood there silently, not offering the breakfast options. "What are the breakfast choices?" Marcus asked. "Omelet or yogurt," Rebecca said in a flat voice. "I'll have the omelet, please. And coffee with cream." Rebecca nodded and walked away. Marcus watched her serve 2 more passengers before she finally returned with his meal. She placed the tray on his table. The omelet looked good, but when Marcus picked up his coffee cup, he immediately noticed something was wrong. The coffee was black. "No cream." "Excuse me," Marcus said as Rebecca started to walk away. "I asked for cream with my coffee." Rebecca stopped but did not turn around immediately. When she did face him, she looked annoyed. "We're running low on cream," she said. Marcus glanced at David's seat across the aisle. He could see the small container of cream on David's tray table. Rebecca had just served it to him less than 2 minutes ago. "Could I have just a little?" Marcus asked politely. Rebecca sighed deeply, like he was asking her to do something extremely difficult. "I'll check," she said, and walked toward the galley. David leaned across the aisle. "Here," he said, holding out his cream container. "I haven't opened mine yet." "Take it." "Thank you," Marcus said. "But you don't have to do that." "I know I don't have to," David said. "But what she's doing is wrong. I'm not going to just sit here and watch it happen." He placed the cream on Marcus's tray table. Marcus appreciated the gesture. He opened the cream and poured it into his coffee. Rebecca returned a minute later with another cream container. She saw that Marcus already had one and her eyes narrowed. She looked at David, then back at Marcus. "I see you got cream," she said coldly. She took the extra container and walked away quickly. Eleanor, sitting behind Marcus, leaned forward. "That man is a good person," she said, nodding toward David. "Not enough people speak up when they see something wrong." David overheard her. "I work in the airline industry," he said, turning slightly so both Marcus and Eleanor could hear him. "I consult with airlines on customer service and operations. What I'm witnessing on this flight is completely unacceptable. I'm going to file a report when we land." "You don't have to do that," Marcus said. "Yes, I do," David insisted. "I'm literally paid to help airlines improve their service. If I see something like this and say nothing, what does that make me?" Marcus nodded slowly. He was starting to realize that this situation was bigger than just him and Rebecca. Other passengers had noticed. They were bothered by it. They wanted to help. The captain's voice came over the speaker. "Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Captain Martinez. We're about 45 minutes from London Heathrow. The weather is clear and we should have a smooth landing. Flight attendants, please prepare the cabin." Rebecca began collecting breakfast trays. When she reached Marcus, she took his tray without a word. She did not ask if he was finished. She did not ask if he needed anything else. She just grabbed the tray and moved on. Marcus decided to use the bathroom before landing. He stood up and walked to the back of the first-class cabin. As he waited for the bathroom to be free, a young man approached him. The young man looked nervous. He was maybe 20 years old, wearing a university sweatshirt. "Excuse me," the young man said quietly. "Are you Marcus Kim?" Marcus was surprised. "Yes, I am." The young man's face lit up. "I thought so. I saw you at the Tech Forward conference last year in Chicago. You gave a talk about using technology to create opportunities for underrepresented communities." I remember that conference, Marcus said. Your talk changed my life, the young man said. His words came out in a rush, like he had been holding them in. I'm a computer science student at MIT. I come from a low-income family. I couldn't afford college, but your scholarship program helped me get there. The Kim Foundation Scholarship. I'm one of the recipients, Marcus smiled. That's wonderful. What's your name? James Park, the young man said. I'm in my second year now. I'm doing really well. I have a 3.8 GPA, and I got an internship at a software company for this summer. That's excellent, James, Marcus said warmly. I'm proud of you. Could I take a picture with you? James asked. My mom won't believe I met you on a plane. Of course, Marcus said. James pulled out his phone and they took a quick selfie together. James thanked Marcus 3 more times before returning to his seat in the economy cabin. He had apparently walked up to first class just to talk to Marcus. Marcus used the bathroom and returned to his seat. As he sat down, he noticed Rebecca watching him from the galley. She had seen him take the photo with James. She looked confused. A few minutes later, Rebecca approached Jennifer in the galley. Marcus could see them through the gap in the curtain. Rebecca was asking Jennifer something, gesturing toward Marcus's seat. Jennifer pulled out her phone and appeared to be searching for something. Marcus saw Jennifer's face change. Her eyes went wide. She showed her phone to Rebecca, but Rebecca shook her head like she did not believe what she was seeing. She took Jennifer's phone and looked at it herself. Rebecca's face went pale. She stared at the phone screen for a long moment. Then she looked at Marcus through the curtain. Their eyes met briefly before Rebecca turned away quickly. Jennifer tried to talk to Rebecca, but Rebecca pushed past her and walked to the very back of the plane. She looked upset. Jennifer approached Marcus's seat. She looked nervous and embarrassed. Mr. Kim, she said quietly, I just want to apologize for how you've been treated on this flight. I should have said something earlier. I should have stood up for you. You did try, Marcus said gently. I heard you in the galley last night. You told Rebecca she was being inappropriate. Jennifer looked surprised. You heard that? I did. I'm so sorry, Jennifer said. I should have done more. I should have gone to the captain. But Rebecca is senior to me, and I was afraid of causing problems for my career. That's a terrible excuse. You deserve better. Speaking up is hard, Marcus said, especially against someone with more power than you. The fact that you tried it all says something good about you. Jennifer's eyes were watery. Thank you for saying that. But I'm still going to report what happened. The airline needs to know about this. I appreciate that, Marcus said. Jennifer nodded and walked away. Marcus saw her wipe her eyes as she returned to the galley. David had been listening to this exchange. So you're not just anyone, are you? He said to Marcus with a knowing smile. I'm just a person. Marcus replied. A person who has scholarship programs named after them. David pointed out. A person who speaks at major tech conferences. I'm guessing you're more important than you let on. Marcus smiled slightly but did not elaborate. The plane began its descent toward London. The flight attendants walked through the cabin one last time, checking that everyone's seatbelts were fastened and their tray tables were up. Rebecca avoided Marcus's row entirely. She had Jennifer check his seatbelt instead. Marcus noticed that Rebecca's hands were shaking slightly. She had obviously searched his name on her phone and discovered who he was. Eleanor leaned forward from behind. She knows now, doesn't she? The older woman said quietly. It appears so, Marcus replied. Good, Eleanor said with satisfaction. I hope she's scared. I hope she's realizing what she's done. People like her never learn unless they face real consequences. I don't want her to be scared, Marcus said honestly. I want her to understand that what she did was wrong. That's different from fear. Eleanor studied him for a moment. You're a better person than I am, she said. After everything she put you through, you still don't want revenge. Revenge doesn't teach anyone anything, Marcus said. It just makes them defensive. I want actual change. That requires a different approach. The plane touched down smoothly on the runway at Heathrow Airport. The engines roared as the aircraft slowed. Passengers applauded lightly, a common practice on international flights. As the plane taxied toward the gate, Marcus pulled out his phone and opened his email drafts. He found the message he had written to Amanda Foster, the regional director. He read through it one more time, making sure the tone was professional and the facts were clear. Then he hit send. The email was on its way. Amanda would probably see it within the hour. And then things would start moving quickly. The plane stopped at the gate. The seatbelt sign turned off. Passengers began standing and gathering their belongings from the overhead bins. Marcus remained seated for a moment. He took a deep breath. The next hour was going to be interesting. Rebecca was standing near the cockpit door, preparing to say goodbye to passengers as they left. But she was not looking at the passengers. She was staring at her phone with a worried expression. The cockpit door opened. A woman in a captain's uniform stepped out. She was in her 50s with gray-streaked brown hair pulled back. Her uniform was decorated with 4 gold stripes indicating her rank. The captain scanned the cabin. Her eyes found Marcus. She smiled and walked directly to his seat. "Mr. Kim," the captain said warmly, extending her hand. "I'm Captain Sarah Martinez. It's an honor to have you aboard our flight." Rebecca, standing just a few feet away, froze. Her face went from pale to completely white. The cabin fell silent. All the passengers who were gathering their things stopped and watched. Marcus stood and shook Captain Martinez's hand. "Thank you, Captain. You had a smooth flight?" "I'm glad to hear it," Captain Martinez said. "I apologize for not greeting you earlier. We had some technical issues that required my full attention during the flight. I hope everything was satisfactory." Marcus glanced briefly at Rebecca, whose eyes were now wide with panic. Then he looked back at the captain. "We can discuss that," he said calmly. Captain Martinez followed his gaze to Rebecca. Something in the captain's expression changed. "I see," she said. "Perhaps we should talk in the terminal. I believe our regional director wanted to meet with you as well." "That works perfectly," Marcus said. David stood up from his seat. "Captain Martinez, I'm David Chen with Skyline Aviation Consulting. I'd like to provide a statement about this flight as well." The captain nodded. "Of course, Mr. Chen, we welcome all feedback." Eleanor stood up behind Marcus. "I'm Eleanor Patterson. I'm a witness to what happened on this flight. I'll be happy to share what I observed." 2 other passengers also volunteered to give statements. The young businesswoman from 3C and another businessman from row 4. Rebecca looked like she might faint. The truth was coming out, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. The passengers began filing off the plane. Marcus waited patiently while others gathered their bags and moved into the aisle. He was in no rush. He knew what was waiting for him at the gate. David stopped at Marcus's row. "I meant what I said," he told Marcus. "I'm going to give a full statement about what I witnessed. That kind of treatment is unacceptable." "I appreciate your support," Marcus said. Eleanor passed by next. She patted Marcus on the shoulder. "Give them hell, young man," she said with a smile. Then she added more quietly, "But in your own dignified way, of course." Marcus smiled at that. Eleanor reminded him of his mother. Strong and wise, but with a gentle touch. Rebecca stood frozen near the exit. She tried to smile at departing passengers, but her face was stiff. Her hands clutched her phone tightly. When Marcus approached with his backpack, she could not meet his eyes. "Thank you for flying with us," Rebecca said. Her voice shook slightly. Marcus stopped and looked at her directly. "You're welcome," he said simply. He did not say anything more. He did not need to. He walked off the plane and into the jet bridge. Captain Martinez was waiting for him at the gate entrance. Next to her stood a tall woman in a business suit. She had short dark hair and wore glasses. "Mr. Kim," the captain said. "This is Amanda Foster, our regional director for European operations." Amanda extended her hand with a warm but professional smile. "Marcus, it's good to see you again, though I wish it were under better circumstances." "Amanda, hello," Marcus said, shaking her hand. "I wasn't expecting such a quick response to my email. I was already at the airport for another meeting when I got your message," Amanda explained. "When I read what happened, I came directly to this gate. This is a serious matter." A young man in an airline uniform approached them. "Miss Foster, I have the private conference room ready for you." "Thank you, Daniel," Amanda said. She turned to Marcus. "Would you mind coming with us? I'd like to hear your account in detail." "Of course," Marcus agreed. They walked through the terminal to a door marked Airline Staff Only. Daniel unlocked it and led them down a quiet hallway. They entered a small conference room with a table and several chairs. The walls were painted a calm blue color. A window overlooked the runways. Amanda closed the door and gestured for Marcus to sit. Captain Martinez sat down as well. Amanda pulled out a tablet and opened a note-taking application. "First, Marcus, I want to apologize on behalf of the airline," Amanda began. "I've read your email twice. What you describe is completely contrary to our values and our training." "I appreciate that," Marcus said. "But I need you to know that I'm not looking to ruin anyone's life. I'm concerned about a pattern of behavior and a system that allows it to continue." Amanda nodded seriously. "Tell me everything that happened. Start from the beginning." Marcus recounted the entire flight. The initial confrontation about his boarding pass, the assumption that he was in the wrong cabin, the way Rebecca served other passengers warmly while treating him coldly, the forgotten water, the meal he did not order, the coffee without cream, the conversation he overheard in the galley. He spoke calmly and clearly. He did not exaggerate or add emotion. He simply stated facts. Captain Martinez listened with growing concern. "I had no idea this was happening in the cabin," she said. "If I had known, I would have intervened immediately." "How could you have known?" Marcus said. "You were flying the plane. That's your job." "This is exactly my point. This kind of behavior happens behind closed doors, in places where people think no one important is watching." Amanda made notes on her tablet. "You mentioned you overheard a conversation in the galley. Can you tell me exactly what was said?" Marcus repeated Rebecca's words about him probably not being able to afford the ticket, about diversity programs, about not speaking English. He saw Amanda's jaw tighten with each sentence. "That's appalling," Amanda said quietly. "Absolutely appalling." There was a knock at the door. Daniel, the young airline employee, opened it. "Ms. Foster, the other passengers who wanted to give statements are here. Mr. David Chen, Mrs. Eleanor Patterson, and 2 others. Please bring them in," Amanda said. David and Eleanor entered, followed by the young businesswoman and an older gentleman. They all looked determined. David spoke first. "I'm a consultant in the airline industry," he explained. "I work with carriers all over the world on improving customer service. I've never seen anything like what I witnessed on this flight." The differential treatment was obvious to everyone in first class. Eleanor nodded. "I watched that flight attendant serve every other passenger with warmth and attention. But when it came to Mr. Kim, her entire manner changed. It was cold, dismissive, disrespectful, and I heard her conversation in the galley. I have very good hearing for my age." The young businesswoman introduced herself as Sarah Mitchell. "I work in human resources for a major corporation," she said. "I'm trained to recognize workplace discrimination. What I saw on that flight was textbook discriminatory behavior. It made me uncomfortable to watch." The older gentleman, who gave his name as Robert Fleming, added his observations. "I'm retired now, but I was a civil rights attorney for 30 years. I know discrimination when I see it." That flight attendant made assumptions about Mr. Kim based solely on his appearance and race. She treated him as if he did not belong in first class. Amanda thanked them all for coming forward. She took down their contact information and told them the airline would follow up if more information was needed. After the witnesses left, Amanda turned to Captain Martinez. "I need to speak with the flight attendants. Can you have them brought here?" "I'll call them now," the captain said. She stepped out of the room to make the call. Amanda looked at Marcus. "Before I talk to them, I need to tell you something. This isn't the first complaint we've had about Rebecca Walsh." Marcus was not surprised, but he let Amanda continue. "There have been 3 other incidents in the past 2 years," Amanda said. She looked troubled. All 3 involved passengers of color. All 3 described similar treatment. Dismissive behavior. Assumptions about whether they belonged in first class. Cold service. "What happened with those complaints?" Marcus asked. Amanda sighed. "This is the part I'm ashamed to tell you. The complaints were investigated, but no serious action was taken. Rebecca is a senior flight attendant with 15 years of experience. She has friends in management. The complaints were dismissed as misunderstandings or personality conflicts. We moved her to different routes instead of addressing the real problem." "So you knew?" Marcus said quietly. "The airline knew she had a pattern of treating certain passengers badly, and you moved her around instead of stopping her." "Yes," Amanda admitted. "And that was wrong. That was a failure of leadership, including my leadership. We should have taken those complaints seriously. We should have required additional training at minimum, or suspension or even termination depending on the severity. Instead, we took the easy path. We tried to hide the problem rather than fix it. Marcus appreciated Amanda's honesty. Many executives would have made excuses or tried to minimize the airline's responsibility. Amanda was admitting fault. What happens now? Marcus asked. Now we do the right thing, Amanda said firmly. I'm going to conduct a full investigation. I'm going to interview Rebecca and Jennifer. I'm going to review the security footage from the cabin. And based on what I find, I'm going to take appropriate action. There was another knock at the door. Captain Martinez returned. They're here, she said. Rebecca and Jennifer entered the room. Rebecca's face was pale and her eyes were red like she had been crying. Jennifer looked nervous but determined. Rebecca saw Marcus and stopped walking. I can explain, she said immediately. Please sit down, Amanda said. Her voice was professional but firm. Rebecca and Jennifer sat on the opposite side of the table from Marcus and Amanda. Rebecca's hands were shaking. Rebecca, Amanda began, I've received a complaint about your conduct on today's flight. I've also spoken with multiple witnesses. I'd like to hear your side of the story. Can you describe your interactions with Mr. Kim during the flight? Rebecca glanced at Marcus and then looked down at the table. Everything was fine, she said. I treated him like any other passenger. That's not what multiple witnesses have reported, Amanda said calmly. They say you treated Mr. Kim differently from other first-class passengers. They say you were cold and dismissive. They say you made him wait for service that you provided promptly to others. That's not true, Rebecca said, but her voice lacked conviction. Maybe I was having a difficult day. Maybe I seemed a little short with everyone. The witnesses say you were warm and attentive to every other passenger, Amanda pointed out. Only your treatment of Mr. Kim was different. Rebecca did not respond. Amanda continued. I also have a report that you made inappropriate comments about Mr. Kim in the galley. Comments that were overheard by another passenger. Would you like to address that? Rebecca's face flushed. I was just talking. I didn't mean anything by it. What exactly did you say? Amanda asked. Rebecca looked trapped. She knew she could not lie because there were witnesses. I may have said something about how he could afford the ticket, and about the language he was speaking on the phone. But I was just making conversation with Jennifer. I didn't think anyone could hear me. So you admit you made those comments? Amanda asked. I guess, Rebecca said quietly. Amanda turned to Jennifer. Can you tell me what you witnessed during the flight? Jennifer took a deep breath. Rebecca treated Mr. Kim differently from the start. She questioned his boarding pass in a way she didn't with other passengers. She served him last. She forgot his requests. She told him we were out of meals that we actually had available. And in the galley she said things about him that were inappropriate and offensive. What kind of things? Amanda asked. Jennifer looked at Rebecca apologetically, but she continued. She said he probably couldn't afford the ticket. She said maybe he got it through a diversity program. She made comments about him speaking Korean. She said he didn't fit in first class. Rebecca's face went from pale to red. You're supposed to be on my side, she hissed at Jennifer. I'm on the side of what's right, Jennifer said firmly. What you did was wrong. I told you that during the flight. Amanda made notes on her tablet. She looked at Rebecca. Do you deny making those comments? Rebecca was silent for a long moment. Then she said, I didn't realize he was important. If I had known who he was, I would have treated him better. The room fell silent. Even Rebecca seemed to realize what she had just admitted. Marcus leaned forward slightly. That's exactly the problem, he said quietly. You think you should treat people well only if they're important. But everyone deserves respect. The young mother flying economy with 3 kids. The elderly man in the middle seat. The college student in the back row. They all deserve the same courtesy and dignity as someone in first class. As someone you think is important? Rebecca finally looked at him. Tears were running down her face now. I'm sorry, she whispered. I appreciate your apology, Marcus said. But I need you to understand something. This isn't just about me. How many other passengers have you treated this way? How many people got off your flights feeling small and unwelcome? How many people went home and told their families about the flight attendant who made them feel like they didn't belong? Rebecca did not answer. She just cried quietly. Amanda closed her tablet. Rebecca, you're suspended effective immediately pending the outcome of this investigation. You'll need to leave your uniform items with HR before you go. Jennifer, you're not facing disciplinary action, but you will be required to undergo additional training on how to report concerns about colleague behavior. Rebecca stood up slowly. She looked at Marcus one more time. I really am sorry, she said. I hope you are, Marcus replied. I hope you use this time to think about why you made the assumptions you did, about why someone's appearance made you treat them with less respect, because until you understand that, nothing will change. Rebecca left the room with her head down. Jennifer followed, but she stopped at the door and looked back at Marcus. Thank you, she said, for handling this with dignity. A lot of people would have just screamed and caused a scene. You gave her a chance to learn something. After they left, Amanda turned to Marcus. What you said to her was generous. More generous than she deserved, maybe, Marcus said. But anger doesn't teach people. It just makes them defensive. If Rebecca is going to change, she needs to understand why she was wrong. Not just that she got caught. Captain Martinez nodded. You're a good man, Marcus. Most people in your position would want revenge. I don't want revenge, Marcus said. I want change. Marcus left the airport conference room and walked through the terminal. His car was waiting outside. The driver held up a sign with his name on it. As Marcus approached, the driver smiled and opened the door. Welcome to London, Mr. Kim, the driver said cheerfully. Thank you, Marcus replied. He settled into the back seat and checked his phone. He had 17 new emails and 5 missed calls. Business never stopped, even after a difficult flight. As the car drove toward central London, Marcus thought about what had just happened. He felt no satisfaction in Rebecca's suspension. He felt no joy in her tears. What he felt was tired. Tired of having these experiences. Tired of being judged by his appearance. Tired of having to prove he belonged in spaces where he had every right to be. But he also felt determined. This incident could become something bigger than just one flight attendant facing consequences. It could become a catalyst for real change. Marcus opened his laptop and started typing. He drafted an email to his executive team at Horizon Equity Partners, his venture capital firm. The subject line read, Aviation Equity Initiative. He explained what had happened on the flight. Then he outlined an idea. What if his firm invested in making the aviation industry more inclusive, not just through money, but through comprehensive programs that addressed bias, created opportunities, and changed culture? He proposed a $100 million fund focused on 3 areas. First, scholarships for people from underrepresented backgrounds who wanted careers in aviation. Pilots, flight attendants, mechanics, air traffic controllers. Second, investment in startups founded by diverse entrepreneurs working on aviation technology. Third, funding for training programs that taught airlines how to recognize and eliminate discrimination. Marcus sent the email to his team and copied Amanda Foster. He wanted the airline to see that he was serious about creating solutions, not just pointing out problems. 2 weeks passed. Marcus was busy with meetings in London, Paris, and Berlin. He was evaluating potential investments and meeting with entrepreneurs, but he kept thinking about that flight, about Rebecca, about Jennifer, about all the passengers who experienced discrimination but had no power to fight back. Amanda Foster emailed him regularly with updates. The airline's investigation had concluded. Security footage from the cabin showed exactly what Marcus and the witnesses had described. Rebecca's differential treatment was obvious on the video. The investigation also uncovered records of the 3 previous complaints that had been ignored. The airline made a decision. Rebecca was terminated, not just for her behavior toward Marcus, but for the pattern of discrimination that the investigation revealed. The airline also announced policy changes. All complaints of discrimination would now go to an independent review board. Flight attendants would undergo mandatory anti-bias training every year, and the airline would create a passenger advisory council to provide feedback on service equity. Marcus also received news about Jennifer. The airline promoted her and put her on a special task force to redesign their customer service training program. She would travel to different airline hubs teaching other flight attendants about inclusive service. But the story did not stay private. David Chen, the airline consultant who had witnessed everything, wrote about the experience on his LinkedIn page. He did not name Marcus or the airline at first. He just described what he had seen and how it made him realize that witnessing discrimination without acting was almost as bad as discriminating yourself. The post went viral. People shared it thousands of times. They added their own stories of experiencing discrimination while traveling.
The hashtag #FirstClassForAll started trending. Journalists connected the dots.
They figured out which flight David had been on. They discovered Marcus was on that flight. Suddenly, Marcus's phone was ringing constantly with interview requests. Marcus agreed to one interview with a major news organization. He sat in their London studio and spoke to the camera calmly. "What happened to me on that flight happens to people every day," Marcus said. "The difference is that I have resources and a platform to address it. Most people don't. They just have to accept being treated poorly and move on. That's what needs to change." The interviewer asked if he was angry at Rebecca. "I'm not angry at her personally," Marcus replied. "I'm frustrated with systems that allow people like her to keep their jobs despite multiple complaints. I'm disappointed in organizations that move problems around instead of solving them. Rebecca is a symptom. The disease is a culture that tolerates discrimination." The interview aired the next day. The response was overwhelming. Some people praised Marcus for his grace and dignity. Others said he was too soft, that Rebecca deserved harsher criticism. A few accused him of ruining Rebecca's life over a misunderstanding. Marcus read the comments but did not respond to them. He knew you could never make everyone happy. Some people would always find a way to defend the indefensible. Rebecca herself gave one interview to a tabloid newspaper. She claimed she was the victim of cancel culture. She said she made a small mistake and her entire career was destroyed. She said people were too sensitive these days and could not take a joke. The interview backfired. People pointed out that 3 previous passengers had complained about her behavior. They noted that what she did was not a joke but a pattern of discrimination. The newspaper was criticized for giving her a platform without properly investigating her claims. Marcus saw the interview but chose not to comment publicly. Let Rebecca tell her story. The facts spoke for themselves. Meanwhile, Marcus's aviation equity initiative was moving forward. His executive team loved the idea. They set up the $100 million fund and began accepting applications. Within the first week, they received over 5,000 applications. Students who dreamed of becoming pilots but could not afford flight school. Entrepreneurs with innovative ideas for making air travel more accessible. Organizations that wanted funding to create diversity training programs. Marcus and his team reviewed applications late into the night. They were looking for people who not only had talent and drive, but who understood the importance of creating inclusive systems. One application stood out. It was from a young woman named Maya Okafor. She was a flight attendant who had experienced discrimination herself. She wanted to start a nonprofit organization that provided support and advocacy for airline workers who witnessed or experienced bias. She wanted to create a network where people could report problems without fear of losing their jobs. Marcus called Maya personally. "I read your application," he said. "I want to fund your organization, but I also want to offer you something else. Would you be interested in joining the Passenger Advisory Council at the airline where my incident occurred?" Maya was stunned. "You want me on the council? But I'm just a flight attendant." "You're not just anything," Marcus said firmly. "You're someone with direct experience and valuable insights." "That's exactly what the council needs." Maya accepted. She became one of the first members of the advisory council. She brought real-world perspective that executives and consultants could never provide. A month after the flight, Marcus was invited to speak at an aviation industry conference in Dubai. The event brought together airline executives, government officials, and technology companies from around the world. Marcus stood on stage in front of 3,000 people. He told the story of his flight. He described Rebecca's behavior, but he also described Jennifer's courage to speak up, David's willingness to be a witness, Eleanor's lifetime of experiencing discrimination, the airline's decision to make real changes. "The aviation industry has a discrimination problem," Marcus said, "but it's not unsolvable. It requires leadership willing to admit mistakes, systems that take complaints seriously, training that goes deeper than checking boxes, and most importantly, it requires people at every level speaking up when they see something wrong." He announced his firm's Aviation Equity Initiative. He explained the scholarship program, the startup funding, and the training resources. Then he issued a challenge. "I'm committing $100 million to this effort," Marcus said, "but I can't solve this problem alone. I'm calling on every airline, every aircraft manufacturer, every airport authority to make their own commitments. Commit to diverse hiring. Commit to independent oversight of discrimination complaints. Commit to transparency about your progress. Let's make aviation an industry where everyone truly feels welcome. The audience applauded. But more importantly, several executives approached Marcus after his speech. They wanted to partner with his initiative. They wanted to implement similar programs at their airlines. They wanted to be part of the solution. One of those executives was from the airline where Marcus had his incident. "We're grateful you gave us a chance to make this right," she said. "Most people in your position would have just sued us and moved on. You chose to work with us to create change." "Lawsuits don't change culture," Marcus replied. "Partnership does." Back in his London hotel room that night, Marcus video called his mother in Seoul. She was in her kitchen making tea. Her face appeared on the screen, smiling warmly. "I saw your speech online," she said in Korean. "I'm proud of you." "Thanks, Mom," Marcus replied in Korean. "But I want to ask you something," his mother continued. "Do you regret not flying private? You can afford it. You could avoid situations like this completely." Marcus thought about her question. "If I hide because I can afford to, nothing changes. The college student sitting in economy, the family traveling for a funeral, the elderly couple on their retirement trip. They can't afford to fly private. They have to deal with discrimination when it happens. At least when it happened to me, I had the resources to do something about it." His mother nodded slowly. "Your father would be proud of you. He always said that success means nothing if you don't use it to help others." Marcus smiled. His father had passed away 5 years ago, but his lessons remained. "I'm using it, Mom," Marcus said. "I promise." The next day, Marcus received an unexpected email. It was from Jennifer, the flight attendant who had spoken up. She wanted to tell him something. Marcus called her. "What's going on, Jennifer?" "I wanted you to know that 3 more flight attendants have come forward," Jennifer said. They reported other crew members who were treating passengers badly based on race. They said they felt empowered to speak up because of what happened with you and Rebecca, because they saw that the airline actually took action this time. Marcus felt a surge of hope. That's exactly what needs to happen. People need to see that speaking up leads to change, not just retaliation. "There's something else," Jennifer continued. "Rebecca contacted me. She asked if I would meet with her. She wants to apologize, and she wants to ask me some questions about the bias training I'm developing. She says she's been going to therapy and trying to understand why she made the assumptions she did." "Are you going to meet with her?" Marcus asked. "I think so," Jennifer said. "I'm not ready to forgive her completely, but I believe people can change if they truly want to." Maybe she's ready to do the work. Marcus thought about that. Maybe Rebecca could change. Maybe she could become someone who used her experience to teach others what not to do. That would be real redemption, not just saying sorry, but actively working to repair the harm. "Let me know how it goes," Marcus said. 3 months after the flight, Marcus returned to New York. He boarded another international flight, this time to Singapore. He was flying first class again. He wore jeans and a simple shirt again. As he entered the plane, he watched the flight attendants carefully. Not because he expected problems, but because he was curious if anything had changed. A young black woman greeted him at the entrance. Her smile was genuine. Her name tag read Keisha Thompson. "Welcome aboard, sir," Keisha said warmly. "Let me help you find your seat." "Thank you," Marcus said. "I'm in 1A. Keisha's eyes widened slightly. "Wait, are you Marcus Kim?" Marcus nodded. "Oh my goodness," Keisha said. Her smile grew even bigger. "I'm here because of you. I received a scholarship from your Aviation Equity Initiative. It paid for my training. I just started this job 3 weeks ago." Marcus felt his throat tighten with emotion. "That's wonderful, Keisha. Congratulations." "Thank you for seeing us," Keisha said. "Thank you for believing we deserve to be here." She led Marcus to his seat and made sure he was comfortable. Throughout the flight, she provided excellent service to all passengers. She was attentive, warm, and professional with everyone regardless of how they looked or where they were sitting. This was what change looked like, Marcus thought. Not perfect, not complete, but happening. One flight at a time, one person at a time. When the plane landed in Singapore, Keisha stopped by Marcus's seat. "I hope you enjoyed your flight, Mr. Kim." "I did," Marcus said honestly. "You're excellent at your job." "I love what I do," Keisha said. "And I get to do it because you gave people like me a chance. I won't forget that." As Marcus left the plane, he thought about his difficult flight from New York to London. The discrimination, the humiliation, the anger he had felt. All of that had led to this moment, to Keisha wearing her uniform with pride, to Jennifer teaching others how to be better, to Maya starting her advocacy organization, to airlines implementing real changes. The flight with Rebecca had been difficult, but it had not been in vain. Sometimes the hardest experiences create the most meaningful change. Sometimes being treated badly gives you the motivation to make sure others are treated better. Sometimes one person's courage to speak up can inspire thousands to do the same. Marcus walked through the Singapore airport with his small backpack over his shoulder. He looked like just another passenger. Ordinary, unremarkable. But he knew the truth. He was part of something bigger now. A movement toward fairness and dignity for everyone who traveled. A push for change that would outlast any single incident or any single person. The work was not finished. Discrimination still existed in aviation and everywhere else. But progress was being made. Slowly. Imperfectly. But surely. And that gave Marcus hope. 6 months had passed since that difficult flight from New York to London. Marcus was in his office in Manhattan on a cold November morning. Outside his window, the city was covered in the first snow of the season. Inside, his desk was covered with reports and proposals. His phone buzzed with a message from Amanda Foster, the airline's regional director. She wanted to meet with him when he was next in London. She had news to share. Marcus was planning a trip to London the following week anyway. He replied that he would meet her for coffee. He was curious about what she wanted to discuss. The days passed quickly. Marcus worked on new investment deals. He reviewed applications for the Aviation Equity Initiative. He gave interviews about diversity in business. He spoke at universities about entrepreneurship. But he also received messages that reminded him why the work mattered. A young Latina woman wrote to thank him for the scholarship that let her attend flight school. A black pilot sent a photo of himself in the cockpit of his first commercial flight. A mother wrote about how her son with special needs was treated with kindness by a flight attendant who had gone through the new training program. These messages kept Marcus going on difficult days. They reminded him that change was not just an idea. It was real people living better lives. Marcus flew to London on a Wednesday afternoon. This time his flight was smooth and pleasant. The flight, attendants treated all passengers with respect and warmth. He noticed they were more diverse than crews had been in the past. More women of color, more young men. A wider range of ages and backgrounds, small changes, but meaningful ones. On Thursday morning, Marcus met Amanda at a quiet cafe near Hyde Park. She was already there when he arrived, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups of coffee waiting. "Marcus, thank you for meeting me," Amanda said as he sat down. "Of course," Marcus replied. "Your message sounded important." Amanda took a deep breath. "I wanted to give you an update on everything that's happened since your flight, and I wanted to ask for your advice on something." "I'm listening," Marcus said. Amanda pulled out her tablet. "The changes we made after your incident have had a bigger impact than we expected. In the past 6 months, discrimination complaints are down by 75%, but reports of discrimination are actually up." Marcus understood immediately. More people feel safe reporting problems. "Exactly," Amanda said. "The independent review board has made people trust that their complaints will be taken seriously. Flight attendants are reporting other crew members who act inappropriately. Passengers are speaking up when they see problems. We're uncovering issues that have been hiding for years." "That's good," Marcus said. "Painful, but good. You can't fix problems you don't know about." Amanda nodded. "We've had to let go of 7 more employees. Not just flight attendants, 2 gate agents, a supervisor, and 3 customer service representatives. All of them had patterns of discriminatory behavior that previous management ignored." "How is your staff handling all of this?" Marcus asked. "It's been hard," Amanda admitted. "Some people are angry. They think we're overreacting. They say we're creating a witch hunt. But most of our employees support the changes. They're relieved that we're finally addressing problems they've witnessed for years." She swiped to a new page on her tablet. The training program Jennifer helped create has been incredibly effective. We're seeing real shifts in how crew members think about service. They're questioning their own biases. They're speaking up when they see colleagues treating passengers unfairly. Jennifer is doing important work, Marcus said. He had stayed in touch with her over the past months. She had sent him updates about the training program and asked for his input on certain modules. She's remarkable, Amanda agreed. We're lucky to have her. She's been offered jobs by 3 other airlines, but she wants to stay with us. She says she wants to finish what she started. Marcus smiled at that. Jennifer had found her purpose. Amanda hesitated before continuing. There's something else I need to tell you. It's about Rebecca. Marcus set down his coffee cup and listened. Rebecca has been in therapy, Amanda said. She's been working with a counselor who specializes in unconscious bias and racism. She contacted our HR department last month. She wants to know if she can participate in our training program, not as an instructor, obviously, but as someone who can share what she learned from her mistakes. Marcus was surprised. What do you think about that? I'm conflicted, Amanda admitted. Part of me thinks it's too soon, that she hasn't earned the right to be part of the solution, but another part of me thinks that hearing from someone who actually engaged in discriminatory behavior and did the work to change might be powerful for our employees. What does Jennifer think? Marcus asked. Jennifer met with Rebecca twice, Amanda said. She says Rebecca seems genuinely different, that she's done real work to understand her biases and where they came from. Jennifer thinks having Rebecca participate could be valuable, but only if it's done carefully, with boundaries, with clear expectations. Marcus thought about this. He remembered Rebecca crying in the conference room. He remembered her interview where she blamed everyone but herself. But he also believed people could change if they truly wanted to. I think you should let her participate, Marcus said. But not yet. Give it another 6 months. Let her continue her therapy. Let her prove through her actions, not just her words, that she's changed. Then, if Jennifer still believes she's ready, give her a chance. Amanda looked relieved. That feels right. Thank you. They talked for another hour about the Aviation Equity Initiative. Amanda's airline had partnered with Marcus's fund to create a mentorship program. Experienced pilots and crew members were mentoring young people from underrepresented backgrounds who wanted careers in aviation. The program already had 200 mentorship pairs. Young people were learning not just technical skills, but how to navigate an industry that had not always welcomed them. We want to expand the program, Amanda said. But we need more funding. Would your firm be interested in investing more? Send me a proposal, Marcus said. If the numbers make sense, I think we can do it. They finished their coffee and said goodbye. Marcus walked through Hyde Park, enjoying the cold air and the peaceful morning. His phone rang. It was Eleanor Patterson, the retired professor who had been on the flight. Marcus, I hope I'm not bothering you, Eleanor said. Not at all, Eleanor. How are you? I'm wonderful. I'm calling because I wanted you to know that I've started giving talks at universities about civil rights and corporate responsibility. I tell the story of your flight and how it led to real change. Students are fascinated. They want to know how they can make a difference in their future careers. Marcus felt touched. That's wonderful, Eleanor. Thank you for sharing the story. It's an important story, Eleanor said. It shows young people that one act of courage can ripple outward in ways you never expect. You stood up for yourself with dignity. Others stood up with you. And now thousands of people are benefiting from the changes that followed. After the call ended, Marcus continued walking. He thought about how many people had been touched by that one difficult flight. Keisha and the other scholarship recipients, the flight attendants going through better training, the passengers, who would be treated with respect because policies had changed, the employees who felt empowered to report discrimination. One flight, one incident, but so many lives affected. The next day, Marcus spoke at the London School of Economics. He had been invited to talk about venture capital and technology investment, but he also talked about using business as a force for social change. Money is just a tool, Marcus told the students. It has no morality on its own. What matters is how you use it. You can use wealth to build walls that separate you from the world's problems, or you can use it to build bridges that create solutions. A student raised her hand. But Mr. Kim, don't you think one person can only do so much? The problems are so big. Discrimination, inequality, injustice. How can any individual really make a difference? Marcus smiled. Let me tell you about a flight I took 6 months ago. He told the story. The students listened in silence. When he finished, he said, I'm just one person, but my decision to speak up instead of staying silent led to Jennifer finding her voice, to David deciding to be a witness, to Eleanor continuing to teach, to Amanda implementing real reforms, to hundreds of employees receiving better training, to scholarship recipients like Keisha getting opportunities they deserved. One person can't solve everything, but one person can start something. The students applauded. After the talk, many of them came up to speak with him. They wanted advice on how to make a difference in their own fields. They wanted to know how to speak up against injustice without destroying their careers. They wanted to believe they could matter. Marcus gave them the same advice he always gave. Start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. Change doesn't require perfection. It requires persistence. That evening, Marcus had dinner with David Chen, the businessman who had witnessed the incident on the flight. David had become a friend over the past months. I've been thinking about that flight a lot, David said over dinner. It changed me, you know. I realized I had been witnessing unfairness for years and telling myself it wasn't my business, that it wasn't my place to get involved. Your situation showed me how wrong that thinking was. You did get involved, Marcus pointed out. You spoke up. You gave a statement. You wrote about it. But only after years of staying silent, David said. I'm trying to make up for that now. At my consulting firm, we've added diversity audits to all our client work. We look at how airlines treat passengers differently based on race, language, disability, everything, and we make recommendations for improvement. That's excellent, David, Marcus said. Some airlines don't want to hear it, David continued. They get defensive. They say their employees aren't racist. But the data doesn't lie. When we analyze complaint patterns, service times, upgrade procedures, everything, we find disparities. Some airlines are willing to address it. Others aren't. Keep doing the work, Marcus encouraged. The airlines that resist will eventually have to change, either because their competitors are doing better or because passengers demand it. Change is coming to this industry whether everyone likes it or not. After dinner, Marcus returned to his hotel. He checked his email and found a message that made him pause. It was from Rebecca. The email was short. Rebecca wrote that she understood if Marcus never wanted to hear from her. But she wanted him to know that she had spent the past 6 months in therapy working on herself. She had read books about racism and bias. She had talked to people of color about their experiences. She had volunteered with an organization that helped refugees adjust to life in America. She wrote that she finally understood what she had done, not just to Marcus, but to all the passengers over the years who she had treated poorly. She understood that her behavior came from biases she had never examined, from assumptions she had never questioned, from a sense of superiority she had never recognized. She was not asking for forgiveness, she wrote. She knew she did not deserve it, but she wanted Marcus to know that his decision to handle the situation with dignity instead of anger had affected her deeply. If he had just screamed at her or insulted her, she would have felt like a victim. She would have learned nothing. Instead, his calm explanation of why her behavior was wrong had stayed with her. She ended the email by thanking him for giving her the opportunity to become a better person. Marcus read the email twice. He sat with it for a while, thinking about how to respond. Finally, he wrote back. He told Rebecca he appreciated her email. He told her that growth is painful but necessary. He encouraged her to continue her work on herself. And he told her that if she truly wanted to make amends, the best way was to use her experience to help others understand their own biases. The world doesn't need your guilt, Marcus wrote. It needs your action. If you've learned something valuable from this experience, share it. Teach it. Use it to make sure what happened to me doesn't happen to others. Marcus sent the email and closed his laptop. He looked out the window at the London skyline. Lights twinkled across the city. He thought about all the people whose lives had intersected with his because of one flight. Amanda, working to reform an airline. Jennifer, training thousands of employees. David, auditing airlines for discrimination. Eleanor, teaching students about civil rights. Keisha, serving passengers with pride. Maya, advocating for airline workers. Rebecca, doing the hard work of confronting her own biases. And thousands of others he would never meet. Passengers who would be treated better because policies had changed. Employees who would feel safer reporting problems. Young people who would get scholarships and opportunities. One flight had created ripples that spread far beyond anything Marcus could have predicted. He had boarded that plane as just another passenger. He had sat in seat 1A wearing jeans and carrying a backpack. He had been judged, dismissed, disrespected, but he had responded with dignity instead of anger, with solutions instead of just complaints, with a commitment to change instead of just calling out one person's bad behavior, and that had made all the difference. Marcus prepared for bed. Tomorrow he had meetings with entrepreneurs who wanted funding for their startups. Next week he would return to New York and review more applications for the Aviation Equity Initiative. The month after that he would speak at another conference about diversity in business. The work continued. It would always continue, because discrimination didn't end with one person being fired or one airline changing its policies. It was a constant battle that required constant effort. But tonight, Marcus allowed himself to feel hopeful. Change was happening. Slowly. Imperfectly. But really. He thought about Keisha's smile when she told him she was on his flight because of his scholarship program. He thought about the message from the pilot who got his first commercial job. He thought about students at universities asking how they could make a difference. This was what success looked like. Not just money or power or influence, but using those things to create opportunities for others, to open doors that had been closed, to make sure the next generation faced fewer barriers than the one before. Marcus turned off the lights and lay down. He was tired. It had been a long day and a long 6 months, but it was a good tired, the kind that comes from meaningful work. Outside his window, London slept. Somewhere in the world, people were boarding planes. Some would be treated well, others would face discrimination. But because of what happened 6 months ago, more people were aware, more people were trained, more people were speaking up. The flight from New York to London had been difficult, but Marcus would not change it, because that difficulty had led to something important, something that would outlast him and everyone else involved. Behind the closed door of that airplane cabin, Rebecca had thought no one important was watching. She had thought her behavior would have no consequences. She had been wrong. Someone had been watching. And it had changed everything. Not just for Marcus, not just for Rebecca, but for thousands of people who would travel in the years to come. People who would be treated with dignity because someone decided to speak up, because someone believed that change was possible, because someone chose hope over anger and action over silence. Marcus closed his eyes. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities to make a difference, new chances to use his privilege and resources to help others. But tonight, he rested, content in the knowledge that one person speaking up with dignity and purpose really could change the world. One flight at a time.